Anthony O. Russell went from Union Army major to the printing press mastermind behind the company that created bicycle playing cards and helped build an entire Florida town from scrubland. Welcome to the Celebrating America 250 podcast. This series is dedicated to the men and women who wore the uniform and then went on to build, invent, and lead in ways that reshaped our nation. Across these episodes, we honor veteran innovators from every era of American history. Warriors who became entrepreneurs, engineers, organizers, and visionaries, carrying the mindset of service into factories, farms, shipyards, laboratories, and boardrooms. In each short story, we will trace a simple arc: where they came from, how they served, the moment they pivoted to civilian life, what they built, and the legacy they left behind for all of us. This is not just about dates and titles. It is about courage under fire, resilience in transition, and the quiet, determined work of helping build a stronger country. Interesting fact: every time you crack open a fresh deck of bicycle playing cards, you are touching the legacy of a Civil War officer who once joked that his first pack cost $35,000 to make. That was Anthony O. Russell, a Union major who turned a newspaper job shop into an industrial empire and later used his profits to carve railroads and farms out of the Florida wilderness. This episode traces how a veteran of infantry campaigns became the quiet architect of America's card tables and a town builder in the Deep South. Early life and background: Anthony O. Russell was born in 1826 and apprenticed as a printer while still a teenager, learning to set type, run presses, and manage the controlled chaos of a busy shop. By the time he reached adulthood, he had risen to foreman of the Cincinnati Enquirer's job printing office, mastering not just the craft of printing, but the business side: scheduling, costs, deadlines, and client relationships. Cincinnati in those years was a booming river city, a hub for steamboats, theaters, and commerce, and Russell's work touched all of it through posters, handbills, and labels. That early experience, tight deadlines, complex orders, and the need to keep machines and people running in sync, gave him the operational mindset he would later apply to both regiments and factories. 3. Service: leadership under pressure. When the Civil War broke out, Russell left the print shop and entered the Union Army as an infantry officer, eventually earning promotion to major by 1862. He spent roughly 3 years in the field, responsible for moving men, equipment, and supplies under conditions far more chaotic than any newspaper deadline. An American Dictionary of Printing later remembered him specifically as Anthony O. Russell, Infantry Officer Major, a sign that his military rank stuck with him even in trade circles. Those years taught him to read terrain, manage risk, and make decisions when information was imperfect, skills that would prove essential when he went back to civilian life and started betting capital instead of lives. When his term of service ended, Russell returned to Cincinnati as a leader who had proven he could handle large, complex operations under fire. The pivot: carrying that mindset into civilian life. Back at the Enquirer job office, Russell resumed his role as foreman, but he no longer saw himself as just an employee. He knew every machine, every bottleneck, every revenue stream in the operation, and he'd just spent 3 years learning what it meant to command rather than simply execute orders. Within 2 years, he made a decisive move. In January 1867, he joined partners Robert J. Morgan, James M. Armstrong, and John F. Robinson, Jr. to buy the entire job department at 20 College Street. The former foreman was now a founding partner of Russell, Morgan & Co., turning his wartime leadership and intimate knowledge of the shop into ownership of the asset itself. That pivot, from operator to owner, is the moment his military mindset fully crossed into civilian enterprise. What he invented, founded, or grew Russell, Morgan & Co., began as a high-end commercial printer, producing show cards, circus posters, labels, and packaging for clients across the country. Within a decade, the firm moved into a new multi-story plant on Race Street and built a reputation for quality and reliability that made their work a fixture in theaters and storefronts nationwide. Around 1880, Russell spotted a gap. The American playing card market was dominated by East Coast manufacturers, even as riverboats, gambling halls, and home parlor games exploded in popularity. He pushed his partners to enter card production, authorizing a massive capital investment, adding 2 stories to the factory, and installing specialized machinery for high-volume deck manufacturing. When the first deck rolled off the line on June 28, 1881, Russell joked that it had cost $35,000, a veteran's way of acknowledging the scale of the risk. Within months, about 20 workers were turning out roughly 2,600 decks a day, soon expanding into branded lines like Tiger's 101, Sportsman's 202, Premium Congress decks, and, crucially, Army 303 and Navy 303, designed specifically for soldiers and sailors. These Army and Navy 303 decks became popular within the ranks, showing that Russell was not just chasing gamblers, he was building products for his own military community. In 1885, the company introduced the bicycle brand, with its now iconic ace of spades referencing the Statue of Freedom atop the U.S. Capitol, tying everyday leisure to national symbolism. As demand grew, Russell led a strategy of system-first scaling, upgrading equipment and acquiring competitors: New York Consolidated Card Company, Standard Playing Card Company, National Card Company, Andrew Doherty, consolidating production into what would become the United States Playing Card Company. By the early 1890s, the printing division had become the United States Printing Company, and the card division was spun off as USPCC, with Russell serving in top leadership roles in both organizations. Late in life, he launched a second act, investing profits into over 100,000 acres in Florida near what became Fellsmere, securing railroad rights-of-way and envisioning canals and tracks to support small farmers. A veteran industrialist turning card money into infrastructure. How it changed lives, industry, and community. By the mid-1880s, Russell Morgan & Co. was supplying an estimated 3/5 of the playing cards used in American gambling houses, earning the modern equivalent of 6 figures a day and making USPCC the dominant card maker in the country. Under later leadership, the company would provide escape map decks and military spotter cards during World War II, extending the mission-oriented DNA Russell helped establish. The bicycle brand he championed remains a global standard today. Magicians, soldiers, families, and professional card players around the world still reach for decks whose lineage runs straight back to his 1881 gamble in Cincinnati. In Florida, local histories remember him as the inventor of bicycle playing cards, who helped launch the agricultural and rail hub that grew into the town of Fellsmere, evidence that he reinvested industrial success into place-based opportunity. For veterans and entrepreneurs, Russell's life highlights a repeatable pattern. Master an existing system, come back from service ready to buy and upgrade that system, invest early in specialized technology, build products for your own community, and then pour profits into infrastructure that outlives you. From infantry lines to roaring presses, from stacks of decks to miles of Florida track, Anthony O. Russell shows how a Union major turned operational expertise into companies, brands, and communities that still shape how America plays and how it grows.